welcome to yet another round of Fertility Q&A with Dr. Rohit Gurgutia, powered by www.ivfandxc.com. Dr. Rohit, welcome back to the show. In today's Q&A session, we are going to be moving back to the basics to help our viewers gain a more comprehensive understanding on the process of natural conception. For any species, the fundamental need is to reproduce, and as humans, judging by our numbers, we seem to have mastered it, but have we? So if we talk about the most populous nation in the world, that is India, in India alone, there are about 28 million infertile couples who are dealing with infertility issues. So that brings us to the question, how aware are the couples when it comes to the nitty-gritties of natural conception? I have some interesting study facts here. A cross-sectional study conducted in 2017 on couples who are seeking fertility treatment. In that it was revealed that 85% of the couples had no idea about the process of ovulation during menstruation. There was another similar study that was done on understanding the level of fertility awareness in India, and that study found that roughly around 17% of couples have the awareness about ovulation, and only 8% of couples have the awareness about age-related decline in fertility. So it is very clear to us that the awareness regarding fertility and natural conception is low in India, and it gets much lower as we move to the rural subsets. So Dr. Rohit, coming to this, you're an expert in reproduction, and you're the best person to guide us on the various nitty-gritties that comes to the natural conception. So in your experience with the couples, in terms of their awareness on this topic, how has it been? Has there been instances where the lack of awareness about natural conception has been one of the reasons why the couples were not conceiving?
You've given a very wonderful precedent to the whole topic today, and I agree 100% with you that while we have existed on this earth for millions of years, and therefore being able to reproduce is a given fact, we tend to make mistakes. We don't have a very clear idea of what is normal, and we jump into the abnormal, and that's not the right way to approach. In my practice, believe or not, I have seen couples, or I keep seeing couples, who have absolutely no idea as to what is the normal method or normal process of reproduction. And it is my practice ever since I started out 20 years back to first sit down with them for 15-20 minutes, and I hope to do this again today with you in the course of the next 1 hour or so, explain to them the basics of reproduction so that they can get a hang as to where they might be going wrong or where we suspect they might be going wrong. And in that context, they try and understand what should be the treatment or the remedy to it. So that's the storyline for me as far as I'm concerned. First, understand how things work for most people, then try and understand what may not be working for you as a couple, and then try and understand what solutions we can offer for those issues. So that's the way.
So we will be moving into the basics of natural conception, but before that, I wanted to understand, see, we all know that a sperm meets an egg and fertilization happens, embryo is created, and that implants, and voila, you're pregnant.
True.
But it is not as simple as it seems, right?
Absolutely.
There is a science behind this, and you are a reproductive expert, so you have a much better understanding of the science behind this, especially delving into those factors which are not that known to us, to the normal population, but has a very significant aspect on the regulation of the entire process of natural conception. So can you, shed your experience or your insights into this?
Excellent. This is the right context, as I said in the last discussion. Absolutely important that we understand what is commonly known and also what is not so commonly known. So get a holistic picture of the whole thing and then take this forward. So let's see how the conversation rolls out, but my intention today would be to bring out the entire thing that we know for today. Please understand, you've been calling me expert, but we are not experts by any yardstick. Human reproduction is very poorly understood even today. I would say maybe around 20-30% is understood, 70-80% is still not understood. So yes, we know it better than the rest of the people, but we also don't know to the extent that we should know to call ourselves experts. So that's the way we look at it.
So let's get into the process of how the process of natural conception happens.
So of course, as we keep saying, sex has to happen for a pregnancy to happen, but it's not as easy as that. I'll try and give a context to it. For so many years, in the last 100 years or so, we have been talking about overpopulation or population explosion, which is why even the government agencies have been talking about avoiding pregnancies rather than getting pregnant. Now, 2023, WHO realized that infertility is big enough to be recognized as a disease, and they're now rolling out programs to prevent infertility and hopefully standardize the treatment that's around infertility. So this is how big the problem has become. Most of it is because of some medical condition, and some of it may be because of the changing social scenario where couples are postponing childbearing till their 4th decade of life because of job, security, career, etc. In our lay public, the second part, the postponement of taking a pregnancy, is highlighted far more than the medical aspect. And even today, even in medical settings, even in clinical settings, it is assumed that infertility is not really a medical problem. So we want to bust that myth. Like any other disease in the system, infertility also, in most circumstances, is actually a disease. Now, how does a pregnancy happen? A person, a female in a reproductive age group, is growing or producing multiple eggs in her ovaries every month. Some of these eggs are healthy, some of them are not. We do not know which of these eggs are healthy. One of these eggs would be naturally selected by the body system to grow up and mature into a dominating follicle. Again, we have no idea as to how does nature go out and select one of these eggs and reject the other eggs. There must be some selecting mechanism that's there, but we have not deciphered that as yet. In some women, the selection mechanism doesn't work properly, and in spite of best of efforts, maybe her body is selecting not so good quality eggs every month. We also know for sure that as a woman ages, her overall number of eggs come down, and the number of available good eggs comes down even faster. So then net, the probability of a good egg growing up every month is lesser. All put together, what we know is, yes, most women would be growing one follicle every month. That follicle would contain an egg. At the right time, usually around the 13th or the 14th day of the menstrual cycle, that follicle will rupture and the egg will pop out of the ovary, fall into the tummy, and there are these two fallopian tubes. They will sweep out the egg from the floor of the abdomen, as it were, and the egg will be sucked inside the tube. This is an active movement of the tube. It doesn't happen on its own. The tube has actually got to go and pick up the egg. And once the egg is inside the tube, it's going to survive for some time. We assume it's around 12 odd hours. And if there is a contact with the male partner during these hours, then there are sperms which will travel all the way against enormous odds, because the sperms will get deposited in the vagina in normal course of events during a sexual act. Sexual act meaning a fully penetrative and ejaculatory sexual act. And again, this is something that most people may not really understand, what is ejaculatory and what is penetrative. If there are enough sperms that have been deposited, some of those sperms which are motile, which are healthy, and which are equipped to fertilize the egg. We have no idea which of these sperms are healthy. What I tell my couples is always that look at sperms as being something like the bee family. Most of the sperms are like worker bees. They are not meant to create fertilization. Some of them are like the queen bees, which can actually go and fertilize the egg. And then a small subset of these sperms will travel all the way up till the egg, and then one of those sperms will eventually enter the egg by penetrating through a thick shell that the egg has to protect itself. And that's when a baby or an embryo would form, when the DNA of the sperm unites with the DNA of the egg. And that embryo, if it is made of a healthy egg and a healthy sperm, will trigger its division process, and it will start dividing into cells. And then this is a growing embryo. And while it's growing inside the fallopian tube, it needs all the nourishment in the world, and that has to be provided by the fluid that's there in the fallopian tube. And with that nourishment, the embryo will keep growing and will slowly trickle down the fallopian tube into the womb. And that time the womb is ready to receive the embryo. There are proteins within the endometrium, the lining of the uterus. They're going to attach the embryo to itself, and then the embryo and the endometrium will actually talk to each other. And if they find conditions suitable, the embryo is liked by the endometrium and the endometrium likes the embryo, then the whole process of implantation will take place. And the mother's womb will then allow blood with nourishment to reach up till the embryo and allow the embryo to grow. So it's such a complex story, it's such a wonderful story. We really wonder at what nature has done for us, and we are there for millions of years on this Mother Earth. And every time that a fertilization happens and an implantation happens, this is again a reaffirmation that nature is indeed magical. So it's not a simple story, it's a very complicated story, but it's happening so many times, so often, that we tend to ignore the magic part of it. It's a very, very complex story, and we deal with this day in, day out, and every time a fertilization or an embryo implantation takes place, we are amazed. So
it's a miracle.
It's a miracle.
So coming to the timing of the thing, timing is very important here, because the sperms have to be available at the time when the egg is released.
Absolutely.
So for most of the couples, they go about with the process without actually having the knowledge of these processes that are happening. So when you're talking about the best approach towards natural conception, sexual frequency versus timing of intercourse. Specialists, they recommend timing of intercourse, but for normal couples, it seems more practical to have increased sexual frequency, which is much easier and less complicated than understanding the timing of the intercourse. So what is your take on this?
Wonderful question, really. See, there are two things that we have to look at. How to make this convenient for the couple versus how to make it more successful for the couple. Nobody on earth can actually time ovulation in that sense. It is assumed that normally ovulating person will ovulate every cycle or most of the cycles around a predictable time frame. So it's around mid-cycle that a person is supposed to ovulate. We also know for sure that the egg's life is not more than 24 hours. On the other hand, the sperm can survive in the vaginal tract for more than 4 days, 5 days as well. So if we really look at convenience and for the comfort of the couple concerned, for them to stay together, engage in active sexual life, if they try twice a week without really keeping a tab on it that it has to be a Monday or it has to be a Friday, that's the best thing to do. And this is what we mean by saying that you should have an active sexual life, at least twice a week throughout the month, so that you don't have to really keep a tab on it as to when are you ovulating or if you are ovulating or not. But the unfortunate part is, in our society, we see more and more couples where both of them are working, or maybe one of the partners stays away in some other city for professional reasons, and therefore there's a need for them to time the intercourse, or in other words, try to get the maximum benefit out of every intercourse that they're doing. We are fundamentally against the timing of intercourse, because the moment you ask the couple to time their intercourse, you're actually taking away the spontaneity of the whole thing completely. It becomes a mechanical matter, and it takes away all the pleasure that's there with the love making that's associated with it. Along with that, this induces a lot of stress in both the partners. If you have to have sex, and if for some reason either the male partner fails to perform or if the female partner is not ready for it, then this leads to mental strife. But as I said, it's compulsion at many times, many occasions, that we have to have this understanding from the couple that in case they are not able to stay together as frequently as we would want to for a healthy sexual life, then the second alternate to that is if they can time it. So then there are methods by which we can do it. There is an ultrasound tracking of the follicle. You can do a tracking of the supposed ovulation with the help of a urinary LH search kit that can be done in the privacy of your own house with a urine testing kit. Pretty reliable. And based on that, you can actually time your intercourse. So a short answer would be, in case you are unable to be together frequently, then at least be together at the time that you're supposed to be ovulating. But we would first recommend active sexual life. For some reason that's not possible, then we will come to the timing of intercourse bit. The timing of intercourse may be good for a pregnancy, but is not very good for your overall mental and sexual health.
Again, for sake of information for the couples, lubricants, the risk of lubricants is not widely understood. So what are the potential risks of using lubricants during intercourse for couples who are trying to conceive naturally?
So the whole process of intercourse requires that the male organ deposits the semen inside the vagina of the female partner. And for that, some amount of lubrication always helps. Unfortunately, the chemicals that are available in the name of lubricants are all toxic to the sperm. The whole structure is such that the seminal fluid, the fluid that comes out of the male organ at the time of ejaculation, is full of sperms, but the pH of that liquid is slightly on the alkaline side. While the pH of the vaginal fluid that is there as a natural protection mechanism for the female partner to prevent infection from ascending is on the acidic side. So on the whole, the balance is such that the seminal fluid, once it's deposited in the vagina, the exposure of the sperms to the vaginal pH is not healthy for them, and they die or they are killed very quickly. But in that duration, there are some sperms which can kind of hang on to the vaginal wall and then climb up into the uterus and then to the tube. And this is how natural pregnancies have been happening all this while. When we put any kind of a lubricant, and this is without any exception, even the so-called natural lubricants or safe lubricants also have either a chemical mixed for masking of odor or for some other reason as a preservative. So most of these lubricants contain chemicals which change the pH of the fluids that are there in the natural ejaculatory process, and that damages the sperms further. So net your pregnancy rates actually drop. So in case there is a need for lubrication, it's better that you engage in some amount of a foreplay so that there's a natural discharge happens, which helps to lubricate better. But please avoid lubrication in case you're looking for a pregnancy. They're pretty safe to use if you're not actively trying for a pregnancy right now.
Moving to the topic of lifestyle, diet and BMI, how does body mass index or BMI and obesity affect fertility in both men and women?
Again, this is a very often asked question, and I have a couple of stock answers to it. Quite obviously, if you're very thin or if you're very heavy, then the whole hormonal situation changes both for men and for women. That affects your ovulation if you're a woman and your sperm production if you're a man. Not only that, obesity also makes you a bad performer as far as the sexual act is concerned. And this is something that's kind of understood or known to almost all of us. What I need to make you and my audience understand is, let's not overplay the obesity or BMI part. Your BMI is expected to be anywhere between 23 to 27. If your BMI is less than 18, then yes, I would start worrying. If your BMI is more than, let's say, 35, I'd start worrying. But if your BMI is instead of 27 or 28.1, that makes no difference. So let's not overplay the BMI thing. Nature gives us a lot of margin in whatever it does. So there's something which is the ideal, and then there's something else which is a much wider range, which is practical. And beyond that would be something which is pathological or not healthy or maybe diseased. If you are able to bring them into the practical range also, most of the purposes are served. So if you are extremely obese, don't plan a pregnancy, especially women, because they might have complicated journey while they are being pregnant. But if you are moderately obese, then work on your body weight, but don't wallow in self-pity that you cannot get pregnant or you cannot have a child just because you are moderately obese.
Does BMI affect the sperm parameters in case of men?
Absolutely same, similar thing. Because if you are obese beyond, let's say, practical limits, then your body fat is making a lot of estrogen, which is not good for you. Estrogen is not your hormone. Yours is the testosterone hormone. High amounts of estrogen act as a dampener to the sperm production, and the sperm production may be affected. The best part to handle this would be to lose weight with physical exercises, because the muscle mass increases, and muscle is what is making the testosterone, which is again good for testes, and therefore you'll have better quality sperms.
So does that improve the sperm parameters?
Yes, I have seen that happening in so many of my patients. Diabetic control or strict diabetic control and body fitness will definitely have a, I would not say a huge, but a marked improvement in sperm parameters.
Okay. So moving to the topic of substance abuse, the negative impact of alcohols, tobacco, recreational drugs on infertility is widely known. But I would appreciate your insights as to why and from what time should couples start avoiding these if they're planning for a conception.
In ideal world, none of us would be abusing this, but then we don't live in an ideal world. It is understood that alcohol should be avoided by women who are planning a pregnancy right from the time that they start planning for a pregnancy, because alcohol while she is pregnant has some amount of a damaging effect on the fetal brain development. For men, alcohol really does not affect them in that sense unless they are chronic alcoholic and that's affected their metabolic processes, their nutritional condition. Social drinking is acceptable. But remember, alcohol does impact your sexual performance. Smoking universally is bad, and smoking includes vaping, hookah, and all kinds of smoke inhalation. So anything of that nature is actually bad, and it's critically bad for women and pretty bad for men as well. It affects the sperm quality, and we still do not know about the epigenetic changes that is created by smoking on the sperm quality and egg quality, and all this will be known to us over the next 2-3 generations, mind you. So this is something that we have to be mindful of, that smoking has to be avoided at all costs. Regarding substance abuse of any other nature, whether it is the glue or the stuff like cocaine and all that, they are completely to be avoided at least 6 months prior to trying for a pregnancy, because they exist in the system for quite some time even after you've stopped abusing them, and they are known to reduce sperm quality drastically. I've had men coming with no sperm in their ejaculate or completely deformed sperms in their ejaculate because they were using substances or banned substances in their college life.
So to underline the point, if you're already having a lifestyle where you are used to this kind of alcohol or smoking, 6 months is the cutoff line.
I would suggest at least 6 months before you're active planning for a pregnancy.
Okay. So what are the lifestyle changes in terms of diet, exercise that individuals or couples can make to improve their chances of conception?
You don't really improve your chances of conception, you optimize your chances of conception. So if your chances of conception were X, just because you were not on the right diet or the right kind of lifestyle, your chances would have been less than X. By improving on your diet, on your lifestyle, you come back to X. You don't cross that and you don't go into super X. So that's something we need to understand.
So that's a myth.
That's a myth. But yes, if you are on a diet which is healthy, nutritious, protein based, and if your lifestyle allows you to go for sleeping early, get up early, moderate amount of exercises, you are at the peak of your reproductive health. So that's the best that you could do. Genetics has given you a set of gametes. With the best kind of lifestyle, you're actually allowing those gametes their best chance for a pregnancy.
So all the dietary recommendations, fertility diets and everything, they actually do not improve a couple's chances of fertility.
Absolutely.
It just optimizes if you're not up there to the mark.
Absolutely. If you're otherwise taking a balanced diet and you make sure that you're taking your foods on proper time, then you don't have to go out of your way and get yourself the star fruit or things like, I'm sure you know, avocado, just because that will help you improve your chances. Yes, if you're not taking any nutritional substance, yours is a completely junk food based diet, then your diet change will help you.
Will help. So, what are the medical conditions that can cause, medical conditions can cause a significant hurdle to parenthood? So, what are some of the common medical conditions that can impact a couple?
Okay, the commonest that we see in our daily practice is diabetes. And then if you look at obesity as a disease, then it's obesity. And then coming down the ladder, almost all medical conditions have a concomitant impact on the reproductive life, simply because we feel that nature would allow you to get pregnant only if nature thinks that you are fit enough to get pregnant. And by fit, I mean all kinds of health issues. Women suffering from mixed connective tissue disorders such as rheumatoid arthritis, SLE, men suffering from things like HLA-B27 positive, ankylosing spondylosis, they all have gamete quality issues. Their eggs get exhausted faster, the sperms do not move as fast as they're supposed to do, and so on and so forth. But by and large, in our regular practice, I'm not really going into the details here, by and large, regular practice, if your thyroids are in good control, if your sugars are in control, then most of these medical conditions do not affect you to the extent that they are not impairing your general life. Otherwise, if you are having conditions where your general lifestyle is getting affected because of some health conditions, then there would be some amount of impact on your reproductive potential as well.
So, what are the implications of certain medications and medical treatments on natural conception?
This is a wonderful question again. There are certain medications which affect your ability to have sex, which also compromises on sperm quality and sometimes on egg quality also. So before you actually try for a pregnancy, you should review your medical history with your consultant and make sure that each of the medication that's actually going into your body is allowed to be taken by your body now that you're planning a pregnancy. Sometimes we still have to allow you to carry on those medicines with risks explained because there are no alternates available. But in most circumstances, there are equal alternates available which are safer. So if you are on any kind of a chronic medication, please review your prescriptions with us before you plan a pregnancy, and don't leave it to chance or don't think it's not important. Every single chemical that's going into your system may have a direct indirect effect on the child or on the health of the child. So review that prescription with us before you move on.
Okay. So, what is the impact of sexually transmitted infections, STIs, on fertility and the process of conception?
Again, this is more and more becoming rarer, thankfully. So instead of the venereal diseases that we used to learn in our textbooks, like a syphilis or a gonorrhea, we are now seeing more of a hepatitis B or a hepatitis C, and in some cases the HIV positive. So there is a chance or a risk of a vertical transmission from the mother to the child, to the unborn child, and we need to take care of that. There are certain mechanisms by which we can do it. If there are infections that are affecting either of the partners, then we say a serodiscordance is happening, meaning one of the partners is affected, the other one is not affected. Then we recommend that you use a assisted method of conception to avoid getting infected, because natural way of trying for a pregnancy through sexual act may transfer the infection from one partner to another, and that's something that we don't want. In most of the assisted methods of conceptions, the chances of infection or transmission of infection from one partner to another is almost eliminated. We cannot come back and tell you that it is surely eliminated, but almost no cases of cross infection has been reported when we have used sample or infected sample of one partner with another, with her partner's gametes, to form embryos either through an IUI or an IVF process. So the recommendation here is, if there is serodiscordance, use assisted method to get pregnant and avoid natural methods.
Okay. That's a really insightful message that you've given. One of the most underemphasized factors is the impact of stress and emotional well-being on fertility and natural conception. So, what insights would you like to share on this, and how would you advise couples should manage the emotional and physiological stress that they go through when they're trying to conceive?
Again, such a million-dollar question, honestly. It is asked so often, parents allude to it, and when we were in college, we had our seniors, our teachers telling the couple to go for a holiday and then everything will be sorted out. It's not so easy. If a couple has been wanting a child or trying for a child and they're not getting a child, mind you, the female partner is bound to be stressed. The whole social structure is such that the onus of childbearing, unfortunately, rests squarely on the female partner, and she is acutely aware that almost everyone in a known circle is looking up to her to deliver the good news. We in fact call it the good news.
Yes.
So she feels she's letting down her friends, relatives by not being able to deliver the good news, and she carries that burden with her, even when the issue is not really her but her partner.
Stigmatization.
Everything. It's a stigma. It is a situation where she cannot go out and share this with anybody, that no, it's not her fault, because end of the day it's not a fault finding thing that we're doing, it's a couple thing. So the whole social structure is such that if you're not having a child, it must be a woman's problem, and if it is so, then you cannot not have the woman being stressed about it. So all that we need to do as care providers or caregivers is sit down with them, explain the whole process of natural conception, and then count out the situation as it is, as in her egg reserve, partner sperm counts, how's the womb looking like, and whether the tubes are patent or not. And then explain to her that in her situation, if the egg count is good and if the sperm count is okay, her probability of getting a pregnancy eventually is pretty good. And in case the egg count is not good or the sperms are not good, then a probability of pregnancy through ART is pretty good. And in case the count is such that even ART is not possible, then a donor gamete donation method is also pretty good. So if we can layer it out for her that these are our options and these are the probabilities of pregnancy with each of these options, intelligently she can rationalize the whole thing in her mind, and she can look at the options from a very logical point of view and then internalize and act on it. So we cannot take away the stress, mind you, but we can actually inform her or inform the couple in some circumstances that this is where you stand and these are your options and this is how you have to plan it out. We are calling this planned parenthood, and this is a reality, and we would like our couples, our audience, to get alive to this fact that infertility is real. It is affecting 1 in 6 couples who are out there trying for a child. There's no point mopping over it or being upset over it or frustrated or to cry when you get a negative beta HCG urine test or a kit test on the 29th or the 30th day of your menstrual cycle. You have to actually get up, seek consultation, understand the whole process, understand your options, and then sit down on the table with your partner, discuss it out with him or her, and then make a plan about it and then plan your pregnancy.
What tips can you give to the male partner on being supportive towards his wife in situations like this?
Very, very important. Do not say that you are busy. Please accompany your partner whenever she is going out to see the clinician. Be around. You don't have to say anything. You're not expected, you're a man, you're not expected to say anything. But please be around. And please make sure that there are enough diversions in your daily life, enough activity other than thinking about a pregnancy or parenthood, which can keep you going as a couple. Make sure that you have at least one honest session of talking to each other per week, so that you can know what's going on in each other's mind and keep up to date. And if you don't like anything, speak up. Don't hide anything. You may be a child lover, and there's no harm in being a child lover. You should also voice out whatever is going on in your mind. But most important, I would say, is in most of our treatment protocols, it's the female partner who gets the injections, who has to undergo the ultrasounds. And I really don't like it when I see the female partner coming alone and getting all of it done alone, maybe you should step in and be her partner, especially when she's getting out, to come to us, to see us in the clinics, and at least be there with her so that she can feel that she is doing it for you as a couple and not for herself alone.
Yes. Because this is parenthood, it's something where both have to come together. So when it's time to take the plunge into parenthood, can you share your advice from your experience so far to inspire hope in couples who are trying to conceive naturally?
Very difficult, really. And what we have discussed in the last 45-50 minutes, I think that's the essence of what I would suggest to all my potential parents, is that medical science has evolved, and especially my branch of medicine, that is reproductive medicine, has evolved like anything. There is now almost a possibility that exists for all couples. In a very rare set of a couple, we may not be able to give you solutions, but solutions exist. Natural conception has happened to 85-86% couples throughout lifetime, forever, that man has resided on earth. So there's a very high chance that you'll conceive naturally. If you still don't get a parenthood, or you don't get a child or a pregnancy, then there is the assisted conception method that's available. With assisted conception methods, maybe you might have to repeat them a couple of times. Most of you will end up with a pregnancy. So if it is a pregnancy that you want, or a child that you're looking at, it is possible. Do not expect this to happen sitting at home. You have to plan your parenthood. You have to look at the options that you have, and you have to come back and tell us that this is the way you want to go about doing this. It's your life and you have to structure it. I am there to provide you the information and the technical support.
That's a wonderful thought to hold on to as we come to an end of this session, Dr. Rohit. Thank you very much again for being part of this insightful discussion. And to our viewers, I hope this discussion, you found it as informative and as inspiring as it has been to me. If you have any questions related to natural conception process, please feel free to write to us, connect to us in the comment section, and also visit our website www.ivfandicsi.com for more information and guidance on this. Until next time, remember that knowledge is power, and with the right information and guidance, the way to parenthood becomes really easy. Take care.